Hello. Hello and welcome to the Chester County Intermediate Unit Virtual College Fair. We're so excited to have you participating. We've got some fantastic programming and some information here to share with you today. My name is Dan Saavedra and I'm going to be your session facilitator. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. One is your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any point in time. And I think they'll say another word about this, but please keep your questions general and not specific to any particular students. After this session, I will be posting a link in the chat. We're going to invite you to join a breakout room with all the college representatives that presented this hour. And that breakout room will last approximately 15 minutes between the end of this session and before the next session begins at the top of the next hour. This presentation is being recorded and will be available at the same website where you registered, strivescan.com/Chester County. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michelle in the Chester County Intermediate Unit to start a presentation off. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'm gonna kick the football down a little bit to Maureen Keegan, my colleague, and she's gonna get us started.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are very excited to be with you tonight, facilitating this early bird Q&A with some local colleges and other agencies. My name is Marie Keegan. I am on the Transition Training and Consultation team with the Chester County Intermediate Unit. I will be helping facilitate.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle McLucky. I'm the other part of the transition training and consulting team at Chester County Intermediate Unit. Just a little bit about what Maureen and I do. We are a conduit from the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the Patent Training Network to provide resources and updates regarding transition in Pennsylvania to families, to professionals in Chester County. We are very excited to be here. This is our first virtual college fair, so we're really excited about that. Some of the things that we're working on is we have a virtual transition fair next week, which we hope some of you will be able to join us. But we are really designed to, our roles are really designed to support the students of Chester County in reaching their post-secondary outcomes. So we're really excited to have all of you today. I'm going to start and turn our attention over to Thuy, who is here from CREST, and she's going to talk a little bit about CREST services, and then we're going to jump in with our local colleges.
Hi, everyone. I'm trying to turn on my camera, and for some reason it's not allowing me to do so. So I apologize about that. But anywho, I wanted to introduce myself here at CREST. I'm coordinator of recruitment, and CREST is an area, a local nonprofit in service of the Chester County Intermediate Unit, as well as area school districts. So as a nonprofit, we hire folks in partnership with the IU to work with individuals with special needs in the school, home, and community settings. If I may, I'm just going to share my screen here so that you could just see a little bit about CREST. And I'd be happy to share this flyer as well, if anyone is interested in additional information. So here's a nonprofit of CREST. We're governed by 23 volunteer board members. This just states a bit of our mission and our core beliefs, and some of the perks of employment with CREST is we do offer a 403B retirement plan, as well as a benefits plan and discount membership at the YMCA. The YMCA is a benefactor of CREST grants, and we do have educational partnerships with 3 area programs. St. Joe's University, Eastern University, and Capella University, which is a nationally accredited online institution. So many of our staff will take advantage of some of those collegiate partnerships and the tuition discounts. On top of that, during the academic year, we do have gift card raffle and payday Fridays, and longevity bonus for staff who've been here for 5 years. It's $500. So that's just a super quick piece of CREST and some of the positions that we hire for. So some options for folks that, if they decide not to jump into a 2 or 4 year program after graduation, you'll see the variety of positions that we help support with the CCIU as well as other area schools. You'll see that here on the right panel that we have an adult program service. So for the CCIU, we staff for direct support providers, employment specialists, and home and community support providers. On top of that, our behavioral health services that we staff for the IU are the one-to-one personal care assistants, registered behavior technicians, and behavioral health techs. So these positions are really great options. Minimum requirement is a high school diploma. And we provide all of the pre-employment trainings as well as ongoing trainings for all of our staff members, and the supervision between the adult program services and behavioral health services. It's all provided by master's level clinicians within the CCIU. So it's an excellent partnership there. On top of that, subset from the IU, we do have 4 partnering districts where we hire for their instructional aid and paraprofessional staff members as well. So so here today at CREST, we're just presenting some employment opportunities for those after high school graduation, where there's immediate work available within Chester County and our surrounding areas. So if anyone has any additional questions, happy to help answer that at the end of the session as well.
Thank you very much, Zoe. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. They may come in as the presentation goes on, but right now I'm going to turn over, if you can stop your share, we will turn the screen and the mic over to Elizabeth Parrott from Penn State Brandywine. Thank you.
Hang on one second. Of course, nothing can go smoothly. Okay. So I'm here to represent Penn State Brandywine and the Office of Student Disability Resources. And I just wanted to give a little bit of information, some fast facts about Penn State Brandywine. We are one of 20 Penn State University campuses. We're located in Media. You can obtain 4-year degrees here. A lot of people are not aware of that. We have 14 baccalaureate degrees, more than 15 minors, 2 associate's degrees. And you can also use Penn State Brandywine as a stepping stone to another campus, often University Park. And there are 275 majors that can be started here at Brandywine. Brandywine does offer tuition savings in comparison to University Park. We have lots of clubs, organizations, athletic teams, and for the last 4 years now, there has been on-campus housing available. There are also a lot of academic supports available here at Penn State Brandywine, and most of them are available to all students. And I really wanted to highlight that tonight. The Brandywine Learning Center provides tutoring for gen ed courses and also provides academic coaching in areas like study skills, organizational and planning skills, and time management. We have a STEM lab, which provides tutoring for all the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and math. A writing studio that can help students with writing at any stage in the process, and some other supports that are available to everyone that you can see there at the bottom, advising and career services, IT supports, Media Commons helps students with multimedia projects, our library, and we have summer bridge programs. So Penn State is really, as a full university, committed to providing a welcoming, encouraging, and empowering environment for students with disabilities. And SDR, which is Student Disability Resources, that's the name of the office. It's at every single campus. We are responsible for coordinating auxiliary aids and services, providing reasonable academic accommodations, and also promoting disability awareness within our community. We are committed and ready to assist students with disabilities to reach their academic goals. One thing that I just wanted to really highlight is that at the college level, academic accommodations are designed to ensure access. And you can see there's a more full description there. It's really to ensure access to all of the course content and the programming, making sure that your disability doesn't mitigate your ability to fully participate or show mastery. But accommodations do not guarantee academic success. As students, you are still responsible for learning the subject knowledge, demonstrating mastery of content, satisfying the essential requirements of courses, showing progression towards your major, and meeting the same demands required of all students. Up at the top, I am showing our website. That is the website for student disability resources for all of Penn State. And then you'll find links to individual campuses. That website is a really, really valuable resource. And I can put it in the chat as well. On that website, if you go down the left side of the page, there are links to all different areas of information. There's a great link there for prospective students in terms of resources for preparing to the transition to college, which I know we're going to talk about tonight, but it's all written out there. And also specific to Penn State, information about how to apply for services, what are our documentation guidelines, an overview of reasonable accommodations, parents' role in the process. And then there is also a whole section that goes into detail about specific accommodations that you might find helpful to take a look at. So there is the email address here at Brandywine. It's bw-disability@psu.edu. Also my phone number, 610-892-1461, if you want to reach out in the coming days or weeks or months with any questions.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
I can put that information in the chat too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. James, we do have a question from James regarding completing the SAT. And James, I'm going to ask, we're going to hold that question because we're going to get to it in our discussion after Ms. Kiefer talks about Delaware County a little bit. Okay, so we will get to that, I promise. So Kelly from Delaware County.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Kiefer. I'm the Assistant Director of Disability Services at Delaware County Community College, and I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Okay. Okay, so why Delaware County Community College? You don't need to take the SATs or the ACTs to go here. Instead, you'll just need to take a placement test. Delaware County Community College is an affordable option. You know, you can go at your own pace, so you can take as little classes as you want. And when I work with students, I typically tell them maybe starting out with just a few classes to get your feet wet, to understand what the expectations are of a college course, how much time you need to put into each course, and it allows you to build some confidence to do well in your class, and then maybe in a future semester you can take more classes. We have a lot of modalities, so you take classes during the day or in the evening, depending on work schedule or responsibilities at home, or weekend classes or online classes. And we have campuses in Delaware County and Chester County. At Delaware County Community College, you can either get an associate's degree or a certificate. The certificates there are less classes, so they are about 30 credits or less, which is roughly 10 classes. A lot of students get a certificate if they want to do a specific skill and then go into the workforce. Some examples are like plumbing, welding, HVAC, electricians, and construction. There's also ones for computers and information technology, or medical fields and the police academy and paramedics, culinary, human resources. There's a lot of different options for certificates. An associate's degree usually is more general. I just listed a few options of majors there. That's roughly about 20 classes, and some students who get an associate's degree transfer to a university where they can get their bachelor's degree. It all depends on what your career path is and what your goal is and how much education is required based on your career. So what do you do to get into Delaware County Community College? You just need to apply. You can do that online. And once you get accepted, they'll instruct you to take the placement test. And you can study for the placement test. You just need to go to the College Board AccuPlacer, and then you can study and take practice tests. We will test you in reading, writing, and math. And you can also take it, you can chunk it in different times. So you can take the math section one day and then come back the next day and do reading and then do your essay. And they're untimed. And then after you take your placement test, then you will do an orientation and you'll meet with an advisor who will help you schedule your classes. So how is college different than high school? I think Elizabeth covered this really well. It's just important that you know that the laws change. The laws that protect you as a person with a disability is different once you graduate high school. And everybody goes to high school, and then college is voluntary and it's expensive. And we're not making any modifications. So you'll be taking the same classes that everybody is taking, and you'll be taking the same tests that everybody else is taking as well. And the accommodations we put in place will allow you to access the material and also to be able to show the professor what you know. These are just a list of common mistakes. A big one that we don't want you to make is, we want students to make sure they're checking their student email every day. That's how your professors communicate with you and how we will communicate with you. And not accessing all of the resources that each college has, like Elizabeth was saying at Penn State, like advisors, tutoring, counselors. Make sure you take advantage of them because that's what your tuition is paying for. How do you request accommodations? You need to submit documentation of your disability, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. Then you'll need to meet with a disability office. We'll talk about your disability and what has been helpful to you in the past. And then you just need to make sure your professors get your accommodation letters. And, for documentation, a lot of people give us the IEP, and we also need that reevaluation report. Or if you had a 504 plan, that and the reevaluation report as well, or a psychoeducational evaluation from a licensed professional, like a licensed psychologist, a psychiatrist, neurologist, medical doctor. Just make sure that you have your diagnosis and your recommendations for accommodations in that information you give. And examples of reasonable accommodations, like having more time on tests, being able to take your tests in a little bit less distracting environment, like a testing center, being able to audio record lectures. So these do not change. We're not going to be changing any tests. You're going to take the same classes as everybody else, and we're going to determine which accommodations are reasonable for you on a case-by-case basis. So we'll review your documentation and we'll talk with you about what has been helpful in the past. And let's see, it's our contact information. This is our team at Delaware County Community College, the disability office. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Let's see here. That's all I have for you guys.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Kelly. What we're going to do now is we still only have the one question, so I think we're good to go. So we will hit that question in our Q&A session. So I'm going to turn this over to Maureen, and she's going to start the discussion.
All right, my first question is going to be for Elizabeth at Penn State Brandywine. Can you talk a little bit more about the types of accommodations that are available for students with disabilities at Penn State?
So academic accommodations are going to be very similar to the overview that Kelly gave. Just like at Delaware County Community College, it's on a case-by-case basis that decisions are made. So I think I don't know that I have anything to add in that area. I know there was some question about housing and accommodations in housing, and there can be accommodations in housing in very specific situations. Again, it's outlined on the website. Either, students who need on some campuses air conditioning because of allergies. At Brandywine, all the rooms it's a new building, so all the rooms are air conditioned, which is very nice. But if someone had a medical need for a single as opposed to a double, or a service animal or an emotional support animal, those are things that would be addressed with housing services working with SDR.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I have a question. Kelly answered my question in her presentation, but can we just talk a little bit about SATs and ACTs and how all of that works and what that looks like for kids? And I think that will help James. James has a question. If I transfer to Penn State Brandywine, am I required to complete the SAT? So can we just kind of talk about that whole process, because it can be a little confusing.
So the news right now is that Penn State, like many other universities, is currently test optional for admissions. That was the case last year. That's the case this year. I'm not sure how much longer that will continue. Prior to that time, SATs or ACTs were required. A lot more universities have switched to test optional, and I think many of them will probably stay that way. Right now, then, you don't need to submit any test scores. And when you're transferring from somewhere else, you can submit them if you have them, but you do not have to submit them. So you don't need SATs if you're coming in as a transfer student.
Yeah, and at Delaware County Community College, we don't require any SATs or ACTs, but if you have them, you can give them to us, and you might test into one of our college level classes, depending on how high you scored, or you could just take our placement test, and that will tell us what classes you should start with.
And Penn State does have some placement testing in math, but that occurs after you've been admitted.
So just to clarify for everyone on the call, if a student would start at a community college and then transfer to Penn State or apply to transfer to a Penn State campus, they would not have to take the SATs at that point because they would be considered a transfer student, correct?
That is my understanding, and definitely not right now.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, and I'm going to open it up to both of you. I'll start with Kelly first. Do you find that it typically helps for a student to add that they've received support on their application to Delaware County?
From my understanding, we do not have anything to check off saying that you receive support. So it's not considered when you're applying to our college.
Elizabeth?
Yes. So The process of admissions does not officially consider disability status. However, some students choose to either share that information in a short answer or a personal statement, and or sometimes with a recommendation letter that someone at the school is writing for them. You know, I think if you have overcome challenges and you have shown growth in high school and overcoming those challenges, and you want to address that personally, it's appropriate to do that. But there's not anything, like Kelly said, there's not anything in the actual application that's going to ask a question like that. It can't be officially considered in the admissions process.
Thank you.
This one is also for both of our colleges. If you were talking to a group of kids and the kids were in front of you and you could actually see them and hear them and see them smile, what would you say to them about the biggest change that they should expect from going to, let's say, their high school to a college campus?
Kelly, do you want to start?
Sure. I would probably say the amount of time required outside of class to study. Students don't recognize how many hours they need to put in for each college class. And, you know, they might build up their schedule with work commitments or other family responsibilities. But I think it's something like for every hour you're in class, you should be studying 3 hours outside of class. So which typically ends up being about like 9 hours a week for a class or something. So I think that amount of time that you need to dedicate towards your studying is a huge difference from high school.
I agree that is a big challenge for a lot of students with the transition to college. And I think it's part of the overall theme, which is there is not going to be anyone managing things for you. So getting up on time, getting to classes on time, building a schedule to get the work done, all those things, that has to be independently driven. You can certainly get support to work on those skills. It sounds like at both Delaware County Community College and Penn State Brandywine. But it's important not to come into college with the expectation that a teacher or a counselor or a parent is going to be sort of managing everything for you. That's a major change when you get to college.
Thank you again. And just as a reminder, if you have any general questions for Elizabeth or Kelly, feel free to put them into the Q&A and we will make sure that they get answered. So we'll start with Elizabeth. Knowing that there's some pretty significant changes that students might expect, what would you recommend to high school students to help them get ready for entering college?
Well, I think to take a really active role in their own learning and really make sure if they have an IEP or a 504 plan that they're going to the meetings, that they're participating in those meetings. That's another big change at the college level. Your parent, while they maybe can sit in on a meeting or listen in, they cannot be the one to answer questions when you're talking about your disability as part of the process of applying for accommodations. So you need to have a good understanding of how you learn and what you need to be successful in your learning and be able to really talk about that yourself.
I was going to say the exact same thing. It's so important to take that self-inventory, understand your disability and how it impacts you in learning, and what your strengths are and how you study best. Do you study best in a very quiet environment, or do you like having distractions around? you make sure you use those skills. And if you don't know, ask your teachers, ask your IEP team, what am I good at? And help get an understanding of what you like. And I think that'll help you, be successful in college when you have that self-awareness.
Thank you so much, both of you. Very good advice. So for our next question, and Kelly, you can start on this one if you'd like. What would you recommend parents do to prepare their son or daughter for college?
I would say to build a safety net of support. So allow the student to, pick and choose who their support network is going to be, and have a discussion about expectations as a college student. So how much do you expect to be involved in their college experience? How will you make sure that they are healthy, and how will you make sure that they are staying up on their classes? I think having a really open discussion about what is going to be expected of them as a college student, um, and also making sure they know who to go to for help and support, make sure that they go to the disability office, and know how to access the counselors on campus.
Thank you.
I would totally agree. And one of the things that I would say is if you are going to seek accommodations through the disability office, do that in the summer or right at the start, because it's not something that usually happens in a day. It's a process. And if you go into it with the mindset, well, I don't think I need anything, and then you get halfway through the semester and you're running out of time on every exam, if you have to go through the process of being considered, then it's probably going to take a little longer. And one thing that's important to know is that accommodations are not retroactive. So it starts where it starts. So starting that process really in the late spring, early summer, as soon as you know which university or college you're going to, that's really, really helpful. The other thing I would just recommend for parents particularly is to make sure that when your student graduates, and students too, make sure you have a copy of the final reevaluation report from high school. An IEP is helpful, a 504 plan is helpful, but it's the evaluation or reevaluation report that's really going to be important. And I know that the state loves the idea of the summaries of performance being sent out at graduation. But summaries of performance are, Kelly, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but they're really probably not going to contain the information that's needed to make a decision about accommodations.
And it does look like Kelly is agreeing with you that is not enough. So a summary of performance for the families on here is typically maybe a 2 to 3 page document that students get when they leave the high school setting, that just kind of says, this is the way I learn best. These are things that can help me. This is my disability. It's kind of a summary of just their general learning, which I think can be really helpful for the student. However, it's not going to include the information that the colleges will need. So really thinking of that, it sounds like more of a student support than support for the college for getting accommodations. So one of the things that I've been in secondary ed for a long time, and one of the things that I always struggle to counsel families on, so I'm just going to ask this question because I think others may have it, is that so a student comes out and says, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need any accommodations, even though they were receiving accommodations in high school. And then, as Elizabeth said, in that scenario, they get about halfway through or maybe 2 weeks in on a semester, and then they're like, oh my goodness, I really could use that extended time, et cetera, the other accommodations that we discussed. So what about, what's your advice? Is it better to apply for those, have that letter, and then if you get halfway through the semester and you're finding you're not using them, then that's okay. Because a lot of times I think kids get worried that they're going to have to use extended time or they're going to have to go to another room. So can you guys talk a little bit about that? Because that's something I know that a lot of families think about.
Yeah, and it's totally understandable. College feels like a clean slate. They want to see if they can do it on their own. Um, I would stress what Elizabeth said is that send the documentation in the summer before the semester gets busy. You know, our disability offices are small and we are getting a lot of documentation right at like the week before classes start. So definitely send in your documentation early, and to the point of wanting to do it, you know, on your own without accommodations. You don't have to use your accommodations once we put them in place. You can choose which classes you want to use it for. Um, it's not like an IEP where your high school teachers automatically knew that you had an IEP and they knew what to give you. If you don't give them your accommodation letter, they will have no idea that you're working with the disability office. The disability office keeps everything confidential. Um, so, so you can choose when you're ready to do it. And I would recommend, you know, having the accommodations in place, going through the whole process, like Elizabeth said, because it doesn't take, it's not overnight. It takes a process of us evaluating your documentation, meeting with you, coming up with accommodations, putting them in place. Um, do that ahead of time so that if you decide halfway through this semester that you want to use it, then that process is already all complete and you don't have to worry about it. Because it's not retroactive and your professors will only start giving you the accommodation once they receive the letter, but they can't go back and change any of the past tests and everything that's already happened.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. I think that it's really important to know that on the accommodation letters, unlike an IEP or maybe a 504 plan, which states the type of disability or maybe very specifically information about the disability, that does not happen at the college level. The accommodation letter simply states that you are approved for specific accommodations and lists them. And just like Kelly said, you choose as the student, you choose whether to share that information with a professor or not. Let's say that you get approved for extended time on exams, but you have a class where there are no exams. You may not choose to share your letter with that instructor at all. Or if you have a class where you're finishing every exam with extra time, you might want to wait and see if it becomes problematic. Those are student-driven decisions. You're really the owner of your own educational experience at the college level. So Michelle, I think you move forward and apply, because the other thing is sometimes you don't get approved. And I also think it's helpful to know early on what you are or are not approved for.
So typically, just to reiterate to families, and I did hear Elizabeth say this and Kelly, a real key piece of documentation for a graduating student is their evaluation or the reevaluation report, because that's going to have the information that you need in order to make those determinations. So we want to make sure that when you're leaving high school that you have that information and that you're getting it to the college quickly. And it kind of sounds like go through the process and then have it in your back pocket if you decide that you need it. We do have a couple questions coming up. So from Cynthia, for Penn State Brandywine, do you accept AP credits from high school?
Yeah, that is definitely not my area of expertise, but someone in admissions or advising could answer that question. And yes, Penn State does accept AP credits, but like most universities, you have to get specific scores on specific exams. Some are accepted for credits, some are not. But you can absolutely check with the admissions or advising office and they can answer that for you.
Thank you. And there's one more question about Penn State Brandywine. Are the majors that are are the majors that are available different for the different Penn State campuses?
So the short answer is yes. Like the 14 full 4-year degrees that you can do at Penn State Brandywine are not going to be exactly the same at every other Commonwealth campus, but there are 275 degrees that can be completed at University Park that you can start at Brandywine. I hope that, do you think that answers it?
I think so. And that's all of our questions. Louis, does anybody have any questions regarding employment at CREST? If your student is choosing not to pursue post-secondary or maybe working while they're pursuing post-secondary at a local university or college?
I'm going to include my email contact here in the chat box as well. That way, if anyone doesn't have any questions right off the bat, could feel free to contact me directly as well.
Excellent, thank you. So to close this out, I'm going to ask Kelly and Elizabeth each the same question. What is your number one piece of advice for parents, particularly if this is their first college experience with a child? What is your number one piece of advice?
Kelly, I'll let you go first on this one. That's number one is hard to come up with.
Around number one, let's say top three.
I would, I guess I would recommend, having an honest conversation with the student about, what they feel comfortable with, what they feel like they don't know yet. I think because it's hard to know what you don't know. And I think it's like practicing asking for help. And, I hear about students who, just don't know how to do laundry or like don't know how to change a tire in their car. And I think, ask the student, what do you want to learn? What do you want to get out of your college experience? And yeah, and I think, letting them take responsibility for, appointments that they have coming up and, not waking your kid up for school anymore, letting them set alarms and, they might have to set multiple alarms. Having them take control of, their medication, when do they need to take it? Just kind of allowing them to be an adult, because in college we see them as an adult and we have expectations, higher expectations for them as adult students in college. So I'm sorry I rambled a lot, but I think there's some points in there.
No, I think that was awesome. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
I know that when we work with parents, there's always a lot of anxiety around this time. And so people are catching all the advice they can. Elizabeth, did you have anything to take us out? We have about 1 more minute.
Sure. I think Kelly's answer was great. And I just want to echo one point that she mentioned, which is asking for help. So I think really allowing your student to become a self-advocate, especially during the later part of high school, is really, really important. And Kelly gave some great examples like scheduling your own appointments. The same thing even at school, letting the student manage questions with teachers, because when they get to the college setting, they have to approach instructors or professors. So I think self-advocacy is just a big piece.
Well, thank you both very much. I learned a lot. I hope that our families did too. And I'm going to turn this over to Dan now, who's going to give us a little bit more information about what happens next.
All right, perfect. Thanks everyone for joining us. In the chat, I just put a link to a Zoom meeting that is going to be occurring for the next 15 minutes. It's a breakout room where all of the reps will be who presented this hour, and you can all are invited to join that. When you close this window, there will also be a very quick 5-question survey. If you could provide any feedback with us, that would be very helpful. This session was recorded along with all the other recordings are going to be available at strivescan.com/Chester County. And we want to thank all of our reps and Michelle and Maureen as well from Chester County Intermediate Unit for joining us. Elizabeth and Kelly, thank you as well. Have a great evening, everyone. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.